You need your video.
Okay.
One minute.
Frank's just walking the wrong direction. Grab one for Commissioner Embry.
120 pounds.
Purposely not drink water. Oh. Made that mistake last time.
Look at the distance here.
Video, sir.
They want me to be able to jump up and block you when you rush Commissioner Embry.
Well, shoot.
5 o'clock, we'll call the meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners, their work session to order. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
I apologize ahead of time. I'm losing my voice. Commissioner Jalzinski, Commissioner Engler, Commissioner Marino, Commissioner Swaney,
Here.
and Commissioner Embry, Commissioner Hope. All present, Mr. Vice Chairman, except for Commissioner Marino and Commissioner Hope.
And both commissioners have excused absence. We'll do the approval of the agenda. We'll do a quick review. We have general public comments to begin. Then we have presentation, special reports, and we have one from Community Mental Health for Central Michigan presentation by 2 of the staff from the CMH. Appointments to boards and commissions, we have none.
Or signaling they can't.
Is that better?
So thank you.
We get down to committee reports. First committee is Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance and Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Embry. Second committee is the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
The Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Next is the Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Chair.
Thank you. We have no intergovernmental affairs. We have under Administrator Controller consideration of approving municipal employees retirement system delegates. Unfinished business, none. New business, we have one item considering the 2025 fiscal year insurance committee recommendations for health insurance. And we do have a closed session tonight. Then we go back to general public comments, announcements, and then finally adjournment. And when we get down to closed session, I'm going to reorder the agenda a little bit so that people that don't need to wait
Public comment.
we'll bring that to the last item and do the public comments, announcements, announcements, then closed session. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Been moved and supported to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda.
Okay.
We'll have general public comments at this point. If you would like to come up to the microphone, we have a list there. Please sign in and state your name.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sheriff of the
Sheriff.
Can you hear me? There we go. Okay.
Get close.
Just a few minutes before we get started with the meeting tonight. I just want to recap a couple things. You got some important stuff on the agenda tonight for my office. Probably one of the most important things in my tenure for sure to discuss. So a couple things. This just happened to happen today, but I want to recap the last 10 hours for the Isabella County Sheriff's Office. So at 2:30 this morning, I was called by one of my sergeants. They had been in a short pursuit. We're currently in a cornfield at dark 30 hours in the rain, chasing two, which we knew to be known felons at that point in time. I stayed up with them until about 5 in the morning, got another hour's sleep, and then I came in. They weren't able to catch them. They got in the cornfield, it was raining. The drones, don't work so good in the rain. The dogs don't work so good in the rain. By noon, we'd gotten some calls that these two people had popped back up. So we went back out there, and I watched my deputies today, along with some other agencies that assisted us as always, race into buildings and barns and search homes with their guns drawn, not knowing what they were going to find. And then it drives it home every time when I see this occur. We spent about an hour and a half out there. Again, we were assisted by great partners. We put our drone up. We had canines. We worked it until we actually pushed the people out into a yard, got in a small foot chase, and apprehended both of them. Not necessarily any crimes in our community that we know of at this point, but they are wanted in many other communities, so we were able to get them out of our community. And that's what we do every single day. That's the kind of work that law enforcement in this community, not only the sheriff's office, but every agency does every single day. The only reason I bring that up is obviously it's on the agenda today for the millage ballot proposal language. I just want to let the board know that the group that had been here when it all kind of came out, they are active. They have their committee established and registered. They have a bank account with funds in that bank account. They have been doing exactly what we said we were going to do. We were going to hold back a little bit, get things organized, but they are ready to go. So they are behind you and supporting you on this initiative if it is to go through tonight. They have been meeting. They have been asking great questions. They have social media stuff up. They have lots of stuff in the works coming down the pipe. We have businesses who are ready to donate and help the cause. So I just want to put that out there as you discuss this and think this through tonight. You are not alone. There is support out there, and we are going to work on this diligently until November. Any questions that you have, I'd be more than happy to answer, but that's really all I wanted to say tonight.
Any questions for Sheriff Maine? Thank you, Sheriff.
I'll turn this off if nobody else is coming up.
Anybody else for public comment? Is there anybody online?
There is not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that, then we'll close public comment. There'll be another opportunity later in the meeting. We'll move on to presentations and special reports, and we have with us today Brian Krogman, Executive Director, and Jen McNally, CMHCM Isabella County Chief Clinical Officer, providing us with information on community mental health for Central Michigan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fountain. Yes, please. Sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, well, thank you for having us today, and we appreciate the time. Obviously, it's a big day today of voting, so we appreciate the county. And my name is Brian Krogman. I'm the Executive Director for Community Mental Health for Central Michigan, and with me, as mentioned, is Jen McNally. Jen is our Chief Clinical Officer for Isabella County. She will give some highlights of the local efforts here in Isabella County. I'm going to speak a few minutes just overall regarding our agency. Community Mental Health for Central Michigan is a 6-county mental health authority or governmental authority established by the Michigan Mental Health Code. We are governed by board members from respective county commissions, community representatives, and consumers of services. In all, we have a 14-member board. I'd like to recognize and thank Commissioner Tobin Hope for his service now over 7 years on our board. So we appreciate his service. The counties that we do serve, in addition to Isabella County, include to the west, we have Osceola County and Mecosta County. We have Clare County to the north, and then to the east, Gladwin County and Midland County. And I, again, want to thank you for your strong support here in Isabella County. CMH provides a wide array of evidence-based services to children with serious emotional disturbance, adults with serious and persistent mental illness, and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Our vision is communities where all individuals experience healthy and meaningful lives. And we really strive to do just that and help individuals reach the fullest potential and really be full functioning members of the community. CMHCM professionals provide individual and group outpatient treatment services, home-based services to support the whole family, psychiatric care, case management services, as well as just a full continuum of care, including 24-hour crisis supports. Last year, our agency across the 6 counties served about 11,000 individuals for an unduplicated count. At any point in time, we're serving a bit over 5,000 individuals, including about 1,200 children. Here in Isabella County, approximately 2,400 individuals received services in fiscal year 2023. Across our 6 counties, our funding supports nearly 2,500 jobs. That would include those that we directly employ, which is about 450 staff, but then also other positions that are part-time and full-time direct care staff. These are individuals who, under contractual arrangements through provider organizations, are providing services to individuals to help them with activities of daily living, grooming, meal preparation, opportunities for employment, helping them to engage in their communities, again, to the fullest extent possible and really participate with full inclusion. We are accredited by the Joint Commission. It's a national accrediting body for healthcare organizations. We've held that accreditation for now almost 30 years, dating back to 1996. Our budget in total, our current fiscal year is $151 million. That's again across the 6 counties. $38.9 million is the budget related to Isabella County. Isabella County contributes about $216,000 to our budget. And that's a fixed amount that's been in place since 1997. So we do appreciate that support from the county. We are facing financial challenge, and about 93% of our dollars are Medicaid. Of course, that's a federal and state partnership. And we have seen increasing need. I don't think that's any surprise. Mental health needs continue to increase, both in terms of number of individuals experiencing mental health needs, but also the acuity of need. Increasing needs, there's more severity, and that means increasing costs in many cases, and yet revenues aren't keeping pace. And so current year, we're facing a deficit. We anticipate similar as we go into fiscal year 2025. Yet I will say, despite these challenges, our staff and providers do amazing work. I'm so proud of the longstanding effort of all of our provider agencies and, of course, our direct services staff. It's serious work, and it takes a lot of resiliency. And we want to support our staff to the full extent possible. And they're really working and caring for individuals who are experiencing significant life challenges. Again, it's worthy work. I appreciate your support, and I'd like to turn it over to Jen to share specifics for Isabella County. Thank you.
Good afternoon. To share some more specifics about Isabella County, at the current time, we are providing services to 1,112 open individuals that are residing in Isabella County. And the services that we're providing to them include, but not are limited to, case management, outpatient therapy, home-based therapy for children and families, clubhouse services, crisis services, employment services, and psychiatric services. And that number does not include our school-based services that we provide, as well as the jail services that we provide. Of those 1,112 consumers, 182 of them are currently residing in residential or adult foster care settings. 13 have indicated that they're homeless. 100 of them have guardians. 573 have a primary mental illness diagnosis, while 265 have a primary intellectual developmental disability diagnosis. We have 138 that are children with primary mental illness diagnosis and 126 that are children with a primary intellectual developmental diagnosis. We have a wide range of services that we're providing. As I had mentioned last year when I presented, we had implemented a team-based care model of providing treatment to the individuals that we serve, and we're continuing to implement that model with the services that we provide. Our teams have remained the same since last year when I shared with you. We have one team specifically dedicated to intensive children and family services, one team with a primary focus of providing services to adults and children with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and 3 teams providing services to those adults and children with a primary mental illness diagnosis. Our Summit Clubhouse was granted a full 3-year accreditation from Clubhouse International after receiving the conditional accreditation in 2023. So we're very excited for that. Our multisystemic therapy team, or MST program, designed to work with teenagers in our community who are at risk of being placed in residential placement, coming back to the community from residential placement, and or potentially was a perpetrator of problematized sexual behaviors, continues to achieve their target goals set by the National MST program overseeing them, and has seen a large number of referrals come in the last year. We continue to offer a number of groups to the individuals we provide services to. Dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT groups, for those who have a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. This is a weekly group that teaches skills along with intensive weekly outpatient therapy. The skills that include taught are emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness, and mindfulness. We transitioned our IDDT group, which was a co-occurring group, into just a straight co-occurring treatment group, which offered it to be open up to more individuals and allow a wider offering of skills. So this is a group that's designed for individuals who have both a mental illness and a substance use disorder diagnosis. We're working to bring back our anger management group for adults. We do have a number of groups for parents that are receiving services. So Parenting Through Change, or PTC, is a group virtually offered to parents to assist in strategies for dealing with children's behaviors. Trauma-Informed Parenting, or TIP group, is offered virtually and in person. And this is a group that's designed for parents and caregivers to support their children who've experienced some type of trauma in their lives. And then lastly, Nurturing Parenting Program, or NPP, because we have lots of acronyms, is offered virtually and in person, and offers a number of age-targeted classes to assist in parenting children. And some of the groups focus on infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, school-aged children, teen parents, and then parents with substance use disorders. In 2022, we began a partnership with Shepherd Schools to open a school-based health clinic providing physical and behavioral health services at the clinic at school grounds. Construction did begin on that clinic this week, and we have recently transferred the program to the Central Michigan Health Department, and they will be the fiduciary and the provider for the physical health services. We will remain in contract with the health department for a staff to provide behavioral health services. We continue to have a full-time staff housed at the Isabella County Jail. Since October 1st, Kyle, who's our jail staff, has had 1,650 contacts with individuals in the jail. Of those 1,650 contacts, 1,047 were individual therapy sessions, and 367 were for group therapy interventions. In 2023, the Isabella Substance Awareness Coalition reached out to form a partnership for a backpack program. Each of those backpacks contains a number of items, not limited to, but including fentanyl test strips, HIV, hepatitis C testing strips, sharp needle containers, Narcan, hand sanitizer, wound care kits, CPR face shields, face masks, and flyers for local resources. Those backpacks are provided to inmates upon their discharge from the jail who have a substance use disorder or at risk for substance use disorder. Kyle reports that he provides about 8 to 12 backpacks per month, and those are very well received. The groups that he provides in the jail are anger management, a life plans group, and introduction to substance use to treatment, and he does divide those groups between male and female groups. We have 2 youth intervention specialists who work within our schools. Over the last fiscal year, they've provided over 100 contacts to youth within our schools. They have provided 6 different types of groups and 120 classroom lessons. They also did some in-services for the school staff for Professional Development Day. After completing those trainings and the Mount Pleasant Public Schools Professional Development Days, our YIS staff received the following feedback. What a great presentation. We loved all of the strategies, tips, and discussions that occurred in your session today. We would love to continue this partnership for sure. And our staff loved it and want more. We may have you guys come back soon if you wouldn't mind coming again. So our staff are very well received in that aspect. We do continue to participate in a number of local boards, coalitions, and meetings. Again, those include but aren't limited to the Isabella County Community Collaborative, the Isabella Substance Awareness Coalition, the Isabella County Child Advocacy Center, the School Safety Alliance, the local multidisciplinary team, adult and juvenile drug court meetings, the CQI with MDHHS, Tiny Homes Village, and partner meetings between school groups and local providers to those with developmental disabilities, and then the care group, which is working with the aging population, as well as many others. Lastly, I wanted to just discuss inpatient mental health hospitalization. So CMHCM authorizes dollars for those with Medicaid insurance or those with no insurance benefits who meet criteria for inpatient psychiatric hospitalization. From October 1st through June 30th of 2024, Isabella County had 147 individuals inpatiently psychiatrically hospitalized for a total of 1,878 days of hospitalization. We have continuously seen the need for inpatient hospitalization increase over the past 5 years. In comparison, in 2019, we had a total of 135 individuals for the entire fiscal year hospitalized for a total of 1,240 days. So we have well exceeded that at this point in time. We continue to face barriers with statewide shortage of inpatient psychiatric hospital beds, the shortage of staff for these hospital units, and the difficulties in finding an inpatient unit that will accept individuals for treatment. With that, as an agency, we have diverted 1,176 screens from inpatient hospitalization placement, offering alternatives such as crisis residential, safety plans home, partial hospitalizations, and referrals to SUD providers.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I do. I'm on the Central Michigan Health Board. It's not the mental health, but it's amazing the material and what goes through and all the people that are helping, not only in the 6 counties that we're in, but the youth too. And there's issues out here. There's issues everywhere. And this is just an amazing job that these people do, and we want to thank you.
Anybody else?
Wonderful. Amazing.
I just want to say that I think we're getting one heck of a bargain for the amount we contribute to our regional community and mental health for the types of services you provide. And they're very, very important and needed services in our community that benefit a lot of our residents. I thank you for that. And I know every once in a while I pop into one organization called Isabella Substance Awareness Organization, and I find representation from CMH there. And it's a group of people that are trying to work to help people with various addictions, whether it's drug, alcohol, tobacco, to move on from those addictions in their lives. So you just scratched the surface, and I think we, have great value in your organization, and thank you. Final chance for anybody else.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for coming before us and sharing your annual report. Move on to Finance and Administration Committee. Commissioner Embry.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair. Finance and Administration Committee. First item is to consider ratifying and placing on file the July 12th, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $287,662.21. The July 19th, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $235,263.17. The July 26th, 2024 invoice list in the amount of $182,188.80, and the adjustment list dated August 1st, 2024. Now, in honor of Vice Chairman Jelazinski, who's also the Chair of our Finance Committee. These invoices are reviewed and scrutinized by our accountant, administrative staff, before they are all sent to all of the county commissioners for review ahead of our Finance and Administration Committee meeting. The Finance and Administration Committee then has a chance to review and scrutinize these even further before they are brought before this board during our work session for further consideration and review. So with that being said, the first invoice list dated July 12th for a total of $287,662 has several items that are over our $5,000 mark, where they'll be brought to the front, the first page of the invoice list. We have our integrated architecture invoice for May. Payment to Clare County Drain Commission for the Little Tobacco drain up there. We have transport for the prosecuting attorney for $5,060. And we have McBride Quality Care for direct supervision for the courts for childcare, as well as a payment of $5,250 for direct supervised care for childcare to Bay County. Those are some of our larger items on this list. Are there any discussion about some of the other items that are on the list? Yes, ma'am.
Can I just clarify, transport for prosecuting attorney of over $5,000 is for extradition services, so I just didn't want the perception out there of transportation for prosecuting attorney being
Expedition, thank you.
just wanted to clarify that.
Clarification. Thank you, ma'am.
Extradition. Thank you.
Commissioners, any comment or questions about the other items on the invoice list? All right, move on to the July 19th list. Again, we'll get back to McBride Quality Care. Again, child care, monthly day treatment is $43,000. And the Youth Opportunity Investment LLC direct supervised care, again for child care through the trial court, of $7,500. We have payments to Spicer Group for the engineering services on multiple drains, as well as the Blanchard drains. And then we have Spicer Group for $16,601.50 for the design services for the rebuild on our administration building. Commissioners, any questions about the lesser items in this invoice list? No questions? Okay. We'll move on to the July 26th invoice list then. We have our BSNA software for $30,000. That's our accounting software for the county. We have the Rave panic button for the K through 12. That's a tribal 2% grant for central dispatch. We have more engineering services provided by Spicer Group for the drains. And our Consumers Energy for the new correctional facility for $10,174 for electric charges. Commissioners, any questions about the smaller, lesser items inside the invoice list? Okay. Hearing none, I just want to point out real quick that within these invoice lists, the total is approximately $704,000 for all three invoice lists, of which approximately only $166,000 is from our general fund expenditures versus $522,000, which are pass-through funds for our enterprise funds, such as Commission on Aging, Parks and Recreation, and so on. I just want to point that out. And lastly, we have our adjustment list.
Can I clarify one comment you made about BSNA for our accounting software?
Mhm.
Just just so that the commissioners understand, the $30,000 invoice isn't just for our general ledger. It includes our general ledger, but it's also for our accounts payable, it's for payroll, it's our timesheet module, it's our HR module, it's inspections module, it's our assessing database. It's a lot more. I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you for that, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we have our adjustment list dated August 1st. Again, I want to thank the sheriff, the director of Commission on Aging, and our administration. Because as a best practice, in order to save taxpayer dollars, they submit invoices to accounts payable in order to avoid late payment charges, in order to take advantage of early payment discounts. And on this list, there's an item to remove sales tax from a submitted invoice, as the county is a sales tax exempt for certain types of transactions. So I just wanted to bring that up. So again, thank you to those county employees that are trying to save the county money. Again, we have our usual and customary invoices for early payment discounts and removal of the sales tax. Gentlemen, is there any questions about this adjustment list? Hearing none, we will move those to our regular board session later on. Item 2 is to consider approving the prime contract change order number 23 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $48,967, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. The prime contract change order number 23, there she is. I do want to say something real quick before I ask Heidi to take this over. I think it's very important to point out that with a project of this size, in scope and complexity, there are going to be change orders, invariably. In any project that I've ever been, construction project that I've ever been involved in, it's never perfect. There are going to be change orders. But I can tell you this, the good sheriff, Sheriff Maine, Facilities Director Schubacher, they have worked diligently on this project, along with Heidi Heinz-Kindle, the Senior Project Manager for Clark Construction, to reduce the cost of this project since day one. Through their value engineering efforts, they created a buyout fund. This buyout fund is used to pay for a lot of prime contract changes, and they have done so up to this point. We have not touched our contingency. So we are at over 80% complete on the project. Again, all the costs have been deducted from this buyout fund and not from what is customarily called a contingency fund for most construction projects. So again, thank you to Sheriff Maine, Sheriff and Director Shoemaker for making this happen. Our contingency fund, by the way, still remains at $781,774. So again, and also thank you to Miss Heidi Heinz-Kindle for helping us with this, because she, and I know I've been a pain, ma'am, I'm sorry about that, but she's been wonderful to work with and very accommodating. So thank you. But I will turn this discussion over to you, ma'am, to run through prime contract change order number 23.
Just one comment before you start, Heidi. When we created this buyout fund, actually it was created because of the change orders. Sometimes change orders add cost to a project. Other times it reduces the cost of a project. So we have benefited. Here we are 80%, and we've had more cost reductions to the project due to change orders than increased costs. So we still have some money left in the buyout from the management of the project.
All right, Ms. Heidi, it's all you.
All right, thank you. Like everyone said, we are at about 80% complete with construction at this point. With that, we are still, as Commissioner Embry had mentioned, we are still taking any of these change orders from buyout. And at this point, we have $50,141 left in that buyout. For a total with our contingency, we have $831,915 left. We kind of have a percentage based on our buyout and where we're at with construction. of about 38% remaining in our contingency buyout line. So with 20% left of construction, I think we're looking into good shape here with that buyout and contingency. So I'll dive into a little bit here on this PCCO number 23. The first item here, in the booking area, we had to add some additional privacy walls. These walls also changed the, it's actually between the booking where you actually have windows where everyone comes in after they've been arrested. And kind of gives a buffer between, like there's multiple people that they have kind of some privacy to talk with the officer behind the desk there. They changed the masonry walls, changed the window frames here. And so there was no cost for our detention contractor at this point. We did have some masonry changes with Strauss Masonry. That included $6,394. And then we had new frames, which was $18,755 for Konowitsky Construction. Since we already had the frames picked up, we had no cost with Murray Painting. So the total cost of this PCO number 102 is $25,169. Moving down to PCO number 106. This was a scope gap. When we had bid out the project here, we did not anticipating as much lightning protection that we needed on the building. I don't know if a new standard was created in between my last job and this job, but we did not have enough figured for lightning protection with our roofing contractor. Obviously, the lightning protection is with the electrical contractor, but with the roof, you do have to put a base layer down over top of their grounding wires and any probes that come up on the roof. So we did have an allowance in our contract with them. And so the difference remaining with that was $8,208. Hindsight, we know for the next time that we will make sure that we have this covered on our projects, that we do have an allowance covering these type of situations. And that all is coming from buyout. Moving down to PCO number 128. This one here is for the privacy walls in the dorm toilets. So we do have a shower in there. And these dorms, obviously they have bunk beds. Without some privacy for the inmates, they can kind of see right into the toilets where the inmates would use. And so we needed to create a masonry wall there to kind of make that barrier for them. And then also in between each individual toilet. This cost here was for Strauss Masonry to do these in 6 different rooms was $5,040. And then our painter had a cost of $865. So this took him, this total here was $5,905 from buyout. Moving now to PCO number 134. There was some makeup air unit grill that was needed. It was not called out on the drawings. And so that cost was for $5,811. That was out in the general population area, area C. And again, this is also from buyout. Moving down to PCO number 141. We did have allowance in our structural steel contract that we did not use. So we did deduct that remaining allowance, and that was a savings of $7,574 that we had into buyout. The next item on the list is PCO number 144. This was, excuse me, we didn't have any blocking that was shown on the details that needed to be, so we could put up the structural security ceiling out in area C for the dorms. To add that blocking that was required in order to put up the channel was a cost of $520, and that was from buyout as well. And the next item on the list was PCO number 152. And this is in the lineup room. So there was a window frame in there. We did have glass in the bottom three windows. On the top three windows of this frame had metal panels. The sheriff had requested us to remove the metal panels and install glass. That cost for that to security glass was $6,795, and that came from buyout. Our next item on the list here is PCO number 156. With construction, we do have unfortunate some damages on site. This was something here that was unforeseen. We had a couple metal panels damaged. We're not sure exactly how this happened. This was on the south side of the building, where we did have an opening in where the steel cells came in and where the mason was coming in and out with their equipment and materials. The only thing we can think of what happened was that some of the temp protection for the opening there came loose in a storm and hit the metal panels and damaged a couple. Luckily, our metal panel contractor, FOCO, was able to had a couple spare panels in their shop, was able to give those to us, and all it was cost then was for labor to remove and replace, and that was with a cost of $1,770. The next item on our list is PCO number 157. Here, this is just a back charge between Strauss Masonry and Murray Painting. Strauss had to come back in after some walls were painted and to scrape some mortar and grout that were on the walls for the painter to come back in and repaint was a cost of $1,703. Next item on our list here is PCO number 161. This was to relocate the exercise room infrared heater line and the water line. There was no dimensions on our drawings. We had placed them during our BIM layout, and we were asked to move those up higher. So that cost there was $2,363. That was taken from buyout. And then the last item on our list is PCO number 165. This is also a back charge between our electrical contractor and a sprinkler fitter. We had to rework the fire suppression line in order for the light to work properly and to be installed. That was coordinated during our BIM session. And because of the fact that the electrical contractor didn't provide all the information needed, they had to pay for the cost for total fire to move that line. So there was no add to the project for that one. That's a total then of the $48,967 that came from buyout. Is there any questions? I don't know if it's mine. I couldn't hear Mr. Embry.
Oh, there you go. Now can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for your time, ma'am. We're all
You're
set.
welcome.
Great night.
Thanks, you too.
And we'll move that item to our regular session. Item 4 is a discussion regarding the wage study. Oh, nope, item 3. I don't want to miss item 3. Consider adopting resolution number 2024-13 to approve the ballot language for the Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Services millage proposal and certifying ballot language on the November 5th, 2024 general election ballots. Would it be beneficial to go ahead and read this first before we discuss? Probably should.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Isabella County Board of Commissioners, resolution authorizing millage election for the County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Services millage proposal and certifying ballot language. Resolution number 2024-13. Whereas Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Services are of substantial benefit to the citizens of Isabella County. And whereas additional millage is necessary to maintain the Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Services. And whereas the Board of Commissioners of Isabella County deem it necessary and expedient for the county to maintain the sheriff's office road patrol operations, including ancillary items needed to perform road patrol services such as vehicles, equipment, communications, and notifications. And whereas a levy of 1.45 mils will be required in order to provide sheriff's office road patrol services. And whereas the Board of Commissioners of Isabella County has determined that it is appropriate to submit a special millage proposition to the electors of the county at the general election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the following question be submitted to a vote of the electorate of Isabella County at the general election to be held Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Proposal. For the sole purpose of providing Isabella County Sheriff's Office road patrol operations, equipment, communications, and notifications, shall the constitutional limitation on general ad valorem taxes, which may be assessed in any 1 year upon all property within Isabella County, Michigan, be increased by up to 1.45 mils, $1.45 per $1,000 of taxable value for a period of 6 years from 2024 through 2029 inclusive. If approved and levied in full, this millage will raise an estimated $3,737,196 for the Isabella County Sheriff's Office road patrol operations, equipment, communication, and notifications in the first calendar year of the levy. In accordance with state law, a small portion of the millage may also be disbursed to the downtown development authorities of the city of Mount Pleasant and Union Township, the tax increment finance authority of the city of Mount Pleasant, and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority of the city of Mount Pleasant. Be it further resolved that this question is hereby certified to the county clerk. Be it further resolved that the county clerk is hereby directed to cause the proposed millage to be stated on the Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 election ballot and to be prepared and distributed in the manner required by law. So I think it's important, again, to point out that previously in our budget discussions, we have committed $515,000 to maintain our road patrol services as they currently stand through the end of this year. This will allow us to put this road patrol services millage request on that November ballot for consideration of the electorate. In discussions with the Sheriff's Office, the Finance and Administration Committee, and the County Administration, again, we have determined that the 1.45 mils would allow the Sheriff's Department to maintain current staffing levels and services to the residents of Isabella County. Gentlemen, any comments?
Commissioner Embry?
Yes, sir.
I know, serving on the Finance Administration Committee, after the 2.5 request was overwhelmingly voted down this past spring, we set out to cut the budget to bring it down to a zero-based budget. Now, the services we've been providing over the years haven't changed, but what we're doing in the past is to maintain a constant level of services is we've been dipping into our savings funds from various sources. We knew that we couldn't do that any longer, and that was the reason why we did request a 2.5. It was not because any money was wasted. It's just that we were not going to be able to keep dipping into monies and deplete our fund balance any longer. So we've been meeting over the months. We in fact, we'll be talking about the fiscal year 2025 budget yet in this meeting, but we've made those cuts. Some of them are painful. Just about every facet of county government has had some kind of reduction in their budget. And we brought it down to the point that we made all the cuts we can, and we still cannot afford the county road patrol services on the 6.61 mils that the county gets. You can see it's closing on $4 million. This is a vital service to the county. It's not anything the county board wants to do if the millage doesn't pass, but we have no choice because the dollars just won't be there to support it. And I do want to hold, we're not an unusual county in having to seek a road patrol. We have Montcalm County several years back asked for a road patrol. It was voted down, and I think 2 years later it was approved. By that time, the county's road patrol there was devastated. I don't think they've recovered up to this point. Gladwin County, a few years back, asked for a road patrol millage. It was turned down and approved then the next year. Eaton County right now is seeking what we tried to do in February, in the spring, increase their basic operating millage by up to 3 mills because they need to support their road patrol. That's on the ballot. I don't know if it's on the ballot today or November. Gratiot County, I don't know if that's tonight. They have a renewal of their road patrol. So counties aren't any different than the families out in living in our communities, that they're hit hard by various cost increases, but we must be fiscally responsible and work within those dollars we have. And we're going to do the best job we can. And we are going to ask the voters to make a decision on whether or not they want to see the continuation of road patrol services in the county in November. So we've done our work, and hopefully the voters will make a decision that, well, they'll make a decision, and this county board will live with that decision, either by maintaining the road patrol or having to cut the service.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sweeney?
So the 515,000 that we're doing through the rest of this year, that's just labor cost, my assumption.
That's the entire operation is my understanding.
No.
Yes.
Cars and gas and oil and everything.
So,
Everything's specific to deputies.
Can we have Sheriff Maine come up and, or maybe, maybe Melissa, would be more, whoever, would be able to run us through, I guess, the budget that, so that we can show and provide, evidence that, a 1.45 mils, I think, would be appropriate.
Very good. Sheriff Maine? Thank you, sir, for coming up.
Take your pick.
So one thing that I think it's important to mention here is this ballot language is for road patrol only. When I say that, that is the detectives, the sergeants, the deputies that patrol. That is not myself. That is not the undersheriff. That is not the records clerk. It's not the corrections. It is only can be used for those deputies to maintain and stay in business and pushing those patrol cars across our county. The 22 positions that we've had, and those are the same positions we've had since 1985, which is a little disturbing at times when you think about the changes. We're still operating with that same amount of deputies and on the road, and the 1.8 incidents an hour they take. That funding is designed for to as mentioned, gas, patrol cars, training, all things that take place or in that budget and those line items that we see, and I could read every line item off to you, but that for it is also, and we spent a lot of time with administration and finance and some of the commissioners on really trying to hash out that number, because we just can't look at tomorrow. Obviously, we've learned that hard lesson, right? So we're looking at our MERS retirement, which has this funny little roller coaster coming up in the next few years. And we already been battling in some insurance stuff that you're going to be looking at. So we want to make sure those funds exist to cover those areas. I want to make sure that if we have 4 major crimes, like 4 homicides in a year, we have enough money for the overtime that it takes to operate those type of cases. So we wanted to make sure we weren't taking more tax dollars from the people that we needed, but we also need to have enough tax dollars for those days that we need to replace a patrol car, or we have some major stuff that occur in our community that we really need more manpower on. So it really is just all of those things, and training is huge. I mean, The state now has a pilot program they just implemented on training. They did give us a few dollars for that, not a lot, but the few dollars to help offset that. I can almost bet that that'll be a thing that comes in and is every single year, which is not a bad thing. But as all things go with the state, I'm always a little concerned because they come in with these great mandates and they dangle a carrot and then they pull that carrot away and then it's your responsibility to maintain. So those are things we're looking at doing. Any less than that, we probably would be in trouble at some point down the road. It does give a little bit of cushion in there, but not a lot, which is what we want to be able to, you know, to have in that fund balance. So I don't know if that answered your question, or hopefully it did, Commissioner, or if you're looking for something more specific.
I guess if you could go over, do you think that we need to provide more detail on those items that are not the individual units? So like the vehicles, the equipment, the communications, the notifications in this ballot language for the voters, or?
I've heard a few people ask, from the previous ones, what are DDAs, what are TIFAs and those kind of things. So those are all things that we don't have any control of, the Board of Commissioners don't have any control of, right? That money goes to those places no matter what. The communications, and I'll be honest with you, again, going back to the last 12, 20 hours of today, we use the notification system to notify our community that there was a potential hazard in their area. I spoke to some of those residents and they said, yep, I got it. And then when we were done, we put another one out saying, we caught them, you're good. That is immensely important when people are nervous and excited and worked up. So those communications, that is the radios, although, we're in a good spot right now with radios. That doesn't mean, 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, we're not gonna have to replace a radio or two. Batteries, I mean, all those things come with that communications piece as well. There is a lot of pieces that go together to be able to send a deputy out on the road and patrol a 12-hour shift. And all that has to go towards that. So I would absolutely want to talk to anyone who had any questions about what the communications piece is in it. It certainly is extremely important to the community, and I don't think the community would be overly impressed if we weren't able to send notifications out to them. And I'm sorry, I might add, I think that was, some of the sirens and stuff too that notify for natural disasters and tornadoes and things like that as well. So that's all part of that communications piece.
I think it's important to note too, this is a very specific millage. And if for some reason the cost of the operation of the road patrol service doesn't come to the amount of dollars that the tax generates, it does not mean that's available for the county to spend in any other manner. That general fund would stay with the sheriff's department for the road patrol. And normally it's a recommendation you have 12 to 25% fund balance, because there's always things that pop up. And so if it ever got to a point that there was an excessive amount of funds in that, with the sheriff in that account, we would have the option to reduce the millage to less than 1.45.
Right.
But it's not going to be a fund that we're going to be able to use for
Right,
anything else.
Correct, very specific.
It's a good point. That's why the language says up to, so the commissioners have that ability and they do set those millage rates, every year. So.
Madam Administrator, do you have a comment?
Exactly my point. That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's an annual decision of the board during your L4029 preparation. This would be one of those millages. The voters levy, if the voters approve up to, you can levy whatever that budget would justify that year. An annual decision of the Board of Commissioners, if approved by the voters.
There's other questions, comments? I just have yes, sir.
I have, so one other question is, before in previous renditions, we were talking about prosecuting attorney. I know that we have one position that we are looking at funding for. And I was just interested in hearing the thoughts on why that was not included to move forward.
Because it definitely is not included the way that the language is,
This is correct.
is brought forward. Mhm.
As, I was gonna say, as we work through the budget, you know, we've had to make some targeted cuts. And just about every non-mandated service that we could was eliminated, or we privatized, or even the mandated services, we've had to look at making cuts. And it comes down to, when we look at the budget a little bit later in this meeting, there's just not enough dollars to cover everything that
I
we're
realize
still
that,
looking
but
at.
I'm talking about the wording of the millage here. If we included prosecuting attorney in the wording on the millage, then it would be the 1.45 could be used for that. And
Add it to it.
right,
Correct.
I don't want to take money away from, you know, the budget of the road patrol by adding that, but
So, Mr. Cole, go
Well,
ahead.
I think maybe we're gonna say similar things, but if I may, I
May.
think that the discussions I've been involved on it, I think we tried to keep it specific to road deputies. I know some of the budgets we ran in trying to determine what is the appropriate millage rate to fund this. Some of those budgets included sheriffs and undersheriffs' wages and benefits. Now, that's not appropriate because if road patrol doesn't, if it's not funded, we still need to have a sheriff and undersheriff. So it didn't make any sense to tie those things to that millage. And so it was in the talks I was involved in, decided to be specific towards road deputies and not broaden out into anything ancillary, even sheriff, undersheriff, police clerks.
So, Commissioner Sweeney, that's exactly correct. You know, we looked at multiple different ways of doing it. And frankly, hearing the community, you know, being out there, they wanted something very specific, not very vague, you know, or I'm not saying it's vague by adding those things, but that's where I think the group came to a consensus where they said, all right, we have to do something very specific because the people want or may want just that funding to go right there, and that's the only place. Now, I do know from sitting around the conversation tables and stuff that there is still discussions of how, you know, to make some of those things, you know, I know we have the hats group and some other things to work on, and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to always support that we need another prosecutor's position. We turn a lot of work into them. All right, they're very busy. David's office is extremely busy. But that was the reason why we ended up going with just this. It wasn't public safety millage, so it could be used for other things. It wasn't including emergency operations and other things. It was just very specific to this. That's why the language came to in that way. Tough decisions. I get it. So
I get it. Very tough decision, and you know, it's tough. You know, certainly on the prosecuting attorney's office to be down, and you know, it.
had lots of discussions
There-
with Mr. Barbary as well.
Yeah.
So
And I will say, following those conversations, really beefed up the contingency in the zero-based budget as well, to consider some of those things like you're talking about, that was decided not to be funded, so that it could be a board decision about whether those things are funded or not, and that you would have enough in your contingency to do so if you chose to. So that was another maybe safety net for that issue that the board could decide versus the voters.
I think, like, the finance committee, I think, as everybody said so far, we thought it'd be best to keep them separate. Keep it simple for the road patrol, keep the prosecuting attorney's situation separate, and allow us as a group to work through our budget and see if we can figure out a way to make it work within the budget that we have. So we may have to make some choices and some tough choices if we want to include the prosecuting attorney's position. So it's going to be up for discussion here shortly. So again, Sheriff Maine, thank you for working with us. Thank you very much, sir, for making this happen for the 1.45. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff Maine.
So any further discussion, commissioners? Hearing none, we'll move that to our regular board session here in a little bit. Item 4 is a discussion regarding the wage study and policies for implementation and ongoing success. In our most recent Finance and Administration Committee meeting, here's some of the items that were brought up for discussion. One was, what is the timetable for implementation? Something we need to talk about. What is going to be the process for implementation? There was a suggestion made that we consider applying any monies that we have available to the most egregiously underpaid based on a percentage, whether it be whatever the wage study salary is minus their current salary, and then divided by their wage study would give you a percentage. And for the people who are, again, most underpaid as a percentage, would be considered for raises. Do we redline salaries? And if we do we do it for across the board, or do we set a wage limit, a salary limit, as to we only are going to redline above a certain salary, so we're not adversely and negatively impacting people that are making less? How do we handle the general fund versus enterprise fund implementation? I mean, we have our Commission on Aging, they have a fund balance. Isabella County Transportation, they have a fund balance. Parks and Recreation, she has a fund balance that they can work with. And if they have the money to make the changes, do we allow them to make the changes even though general fund does not? That's something we got to consider. Are we going to just hold firm and say it's across the board, we're going to stay consistent? Or are we going to allow the enterprise funds to do their own thing? Another question was, how do we pay for the implementation of this wage study? There was a suggestion made that we commit any additional legacy revenue. If something came up where we had additional legacy revenues come in, do we want to commit that to the wage study? I think our employees need to know what's our plan. And another item was, where do we stand on longevity bonuses as well as cost of living allowances? Now, I know for myself, Vice Chairman Jelezinski, I know we talked a lot about our current financial situation, and do we consider forming a compensation committee to help us with this, like we did with the insurance committee, which we're going to find out here in just a minute, did a fabulous job. They were very thorough and they were very comprehensive in their investigations and in their deliberations. They did a terrific job coming up with the new insurance committee recommendations that are going to be coming forward here in just a little bit. So, Madam Administrator, do you want to add anything?
The only thing that my notes say we talked about that you didn't mention maybe was maybe an option of not implementing the wage study fully. I know when the last wage study was brought forward, there was a, here's implemented at 100%, maybe here's 75, 50, 25. We went for the 100%, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? If we're worried about affordability, there's an option to not fully implement it at 100%, if that makes sense. So maybe wages are here, but maybe you get them, you bring those most underpaid, if that's your decision, up to maybe it's 80% of the top, right? It gets them closer if they're not there, just as an option. We talked about maybe not implementing fully. We also, one other thing we talked about was was that we have a lot of labor groups here in the county, and when union negotiations take place, as you know, Labor Council goes out and does our own study with our comparables. And that's what we utilize to go forward. And quite often it can be, in recent years, it has been for some groups, a different increase than what others got. And so we just, the other day at Finance, talked a little bit about the discrepancies that union negotiations can throw into this. But having a wage study with a good foundation that an internal committee could build on, I think has a lot of potential. One of the things the finance tasked me with was finding maybe existing wage implementation policies, if you will, from other counties. So after the budget presentation in a couple weeks, in 2 weeks, we'll start to work on that policy and get a draft to you about maybe what that might look like.
Wonderful. All right. Mr. Vice Chairman?
You know, I think if you ask each one of the commissioners that sit around here, they're gonna have their own ideas on implementation. I look out and see department heads, elected officials, they're all gonna have their own opinions on. It's not gonna be an easy decision. And the fact that we built in a not fund balance,
Contingency?
300,000 contingency in our zero base, that's 300,000. What are we gonna do with the prosecuting attorney? Wants a position. Hats, which probably is gonna take a reduction, but we still have to take care of stray animals or stray dogs that get brought in by the animal control officer. We're not budgeting anything right now for cost of living across the board for employees. I mean, there's other things that could come up. That $300,000 is gonna disappear real quick. And where are we gonna find the funds to implement? It's gonna be a very, very hard decision. A lot of discussion still to come in, but it's gonna be a very hard decision to make everybody happy. We're not gonna make everybody happy, but we're gonna do the best we can. And hopefully we can find some kind of solution to it. Right now, I know there's probably some real critical positions in the county that we may lose if we don't provide some type of adjustment that are so underpaid. These are the pressures that we're looking at as a county board and that we've looked at for a long time when we put notices of employment availability out there and we're not getting any applicants. And furthermore, the people that we have, people that are skilled, we're leaving for other better paying jobs. This is a very sensitive issue and it's something we're going to have to find a way to work through, but it's going to be difficult.
Madam Administrator?
Maybe all the more reason, we can't afford it maybe right today, but all the more reason to have a policy so that when we do have the money, right, we can hit the ground running, or when we do identify in the budget as a priority, we can hit the ground running.
Because I think that was our conversation, right?
Well, I know we need to go forward, have some sort of a policy. What we got to keep in place, and it's going to happen tonight. There's Commission on Aging, Parks and Rec. Even though those dollars are in their budget, those are still taxpayer dollars. And we got to you just can't give this person a raise and look at this person over here that's not in that organization and severely underpaid and deserves it. These are tough decisions. But we've got to implement something or we're going to keep losing employees.
So right now we're talking without having any information. And I just want to say we implemented in 2021, the last wage study.
Yes.
Okay, so we're 3 years out and I realize labor has changed a lot in 3 years for a lot of things. But we need to get the information to make these decisions. We also need the department heads to get the information so that they can review their people and what is proposed and come back with whether it makes sense, whether each position was reviewed properly. So, I mean, that has to happen, in my opinion, first and foremost, so that we have the final study. Whatever we have right now is not the final study. There has to be a review process by the department heads, right?
Yep, that is undergoing.
Okay, great,
Yes.
great. So, and then we definitely need to get the numbers and see where we're at to make these implementation decisions, all right?
Okay.
So, I don't have the proposal. I can't make,
But here, in conjunction with what you're saying, which
Mhm.
needs to happen, definitely, which is going to happen. Again, I had recommended that we create a policy where we're going to commit any additional long-term revenue increases, their legacy revenue increases, we could make a commitment that that's going to be a priority. So that when money does become available, that we are going to commit it to implementing the wage study in whatever process we determine is appropriate. But I think we need to at least show to the employees of Isabella County that we're committed trying to make this right. But we need to
right?
be,
Oh, well, I mean, we're committed to continuing to updating our wage study like we had done
correct?
3 years ago.
So what I'm talking about,
Right.
yeah, so what I'm talking about is the money.
Right.
So we need to commit some kind of money to this at some point in time. Otherwise, like Vice Chairman is saying, we're gonna start losing people. So I think we need to sooner than later.
Yeah.
Make that commitment.
I'm glad that we did the wage study because I don't think it's any way to, run administration, government, going around with your head buried in the sand, like maybe we've done in the past, pushing things off and not doing it. It's not a great time, but we have to have fortitude and will to implement it. Because if we don't, we're just going to bleed off employees like we did in the past, and services are going to degrade. It's something that everybody is dealing with, and we have to deal with it as well. But
Agreed. Yes, ma'am.
I think you'll see those two processes go forward simultaneously, right? We're working ongoing with Amy Sell and department heads and electeds to work out, to get a final document from them, and in the meantime, working on that policy that regardless of what the study says, this is our philosophy about how we're going to implement, how we're going to move forward, right? So I think those things happen at the same time.
I guess my question is, are we going to consider, like we did with the insurance situation, do we want to consider a compensation committee with our department heads and employees? So that they can help us in this process?
I think that would be part of the policy.
I think it should be part of the
Just
policy.
like we have an insurance committee policy, and that dictates, the setup, what it's for, who is on it, what the purpose is.
Gentlemen,
We did talk about, once we have a final wage study document, that we all agree on the process of how we got to it and the structure that it reveals in each office, then maybe that market data is something we can handle internally with that committee. We talked about a lot of our departments having professional organizations that do their own wage studies statewide with much more meaningful, perhaps, information that maybe internally we could look at and do our own wage study. A lot of counties have a lot of this information out there on their website. We talked about maybe putting position wage information on our website. Why not? To get that information from other counties and give it to. So I think this could grow into a really great annual process for the county. To where we're not spending tens of thousands of dollars when it's time to do one. It's something that we get the structure right. We can do maybe a market study each year.
I think with a compensation committee, we could adopt your philosophy of the Sweeney principle, being more nimble. I think it would be very beneficial to have a compensation committee. But
if we go down the road that we're doing our own wage study policies, we need to, I would assume if we have a wage study implementation committee, or a wage study committee that reviews every year, we have to send them to training, or we have to bring in training. That's not something that can be done by anyone other than an educated person, educated in that area. You know,
That part of the policy. Okay. All right.
appropriately. I
point.
mean,
Mhm.
I mean, anybody can do it, but can they do it well and do it appropriately?
Fairly, equitably.
Fairly and equitably. That was the conversation we had at committee. How are we going to do this? If we're going to have a compensation committee, how can we structure it so that it remains fair and equitable across the board? And some people had some very good ideas on how to do that. Madam Administrator, how do you feel we should proceed with this particular discussion?
I think that I should plan to bring you a draft policy. And we'll start working through it.
Through it?
My
Mr. Swaney, what do you think?
recommendations, and we'll
Okay.
we'll go back and forth with the the iterations. You've given me some things here tonight to build into a draft policy for that, so.
Commissioners, does that sound all right to you guys? Like something we start, good starting point? All right, all right. We'll move on to item number 5, which is a discussion regarding the insurance committee recommendations. And as I said earlier, extremely impressed by the work of the insurance committee. I tasked them with trying to help us figure out how to provide the best possible insurance without exceeding our 10% increase in the budget. And they were able to pull it off. They did some really good work. So again, thank you to everybody that was involved in the insurance committee. And thank you to Chairman Hope for establishing that insurance committee. So with that being said, I'm gonna turn this over to Administrator Frost for further explanation.
Okay, so the insurance committee has been getting so educated, they're so engaged, they've got great questions. And they have been working certainly with Lisa Hoppy. She's from Acrisure, used to be 44 North, our third-party administrator of health benefits. And she quoted lots of carriers for us, lots of different plans. We looked at so many spreadsheets. Just very, very proud of the work that the committee has done. If you weren't aware, when we received our renewal from Blue Cross and Blue Shield this year, we were at a 21% increase, equated to just over $900,000 additional that we would spend on insurance, bringing our total spend close to 5 million. So we knew that we couldn't blindly just renew. There's no way that the county can afford that right now. The insurance committee did a lot of hard work, as I said, looked at other carriers, looked at other plans, and their recommendation is to continue with Blue Cross Blue Shield as our carrier, but move from our current PPO plan to what is called the Simply Blue PPO. This represented just over a 10% increase in healthcare across the board, rather than the 21% we were looking at. This would include continuing with our prescriptions as self-insured with Arrow RX. And these changes would be effective October 1 of this year. That's always when our renewal has been, but you may not have seen that, noticed that change as employees who have our healthcare, because we haven't made a lot of changes to the plans. So new cards would be issued if this was approved October 1. MetLife was chosen as the recommended carrier for dental and vision. That would be a switch from our current Blue Cross Blue Shield, but not with a lot of changes in terms of cost or in terms of coverage for employees, which is exciting. Life and disability lines are also recommended to go with MetLife at a total savings of $19,000. That would be a change from our current Lincoln Financial Group. That's who our life, disability, short-term, long-term disability, voluntary life lines are through. Voluntary life insurance rates stay the same, so if employees are listening, please, don't be worried about that carrier change. The insurance committee also recommended to continue with the 3 HRA plans. Remember, we buy a high deductible health plan off the shelf from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then we have an internal HRA that provides those different levels of deductibles and co-insurances, Plan A, B, and C, that our employees choose from. So not only did the insurance committee recommend that those HRA levels stay the same, they also recommended that Plan C continue to be free to employees. I think that's an important option.
Okay.
It was discovered through the insurance committee meetings that there was this idea out there that employee cost shares of premiums covered the HRA costs. That was the logic and thought out there. Through discussion, we found certainly that's not the case. The county does bear that cost of people buying up, if you will, to those higher plans. And so we did an exciting thing this year, and we're looking at better aligning employee cost shares with the benefit, right? And with the buy-up. So the recommendation coming from the insurance committee is that you have a free plan for Plan C, but that if people are looking at a more robust coverage on Plan B or A, that they pay that illustrative rate of what that benefit is. So in looking at the renewal spreadsheets we have, those who quote and through Acrisure, Lisa Hoppy provides us illustrative rates, what we can normally expect that it would cost, right? So what we've done is we've taken Plan C, and there's a cost to that. So we remove that cost, if you will, from Plan B and Plan A, so that cost shares would be a true buy-up. I know employees are really interested in how much are those cost shares going up, right? We know they're not going down. The great news is, obviously, Plan C cost shares aren't changing. For Plan B, it looks like the change is under $150 for the whole year. And Plan A, if you had a family plan, the best plan is more in line of $800 or $900 more a year. So these are not bombs. These are not, these don't make the plans unaffordable to people, right? Affordable Care Act made it so that we have to provide affordable healthcare coverage to our employees. So I'm excited to a little bit reveal though that tonight. We didn't have that last week at finance. So thank you, Melissa, so much for working through those and providing that for the employees tonight. Will those cost shares will be known in 2 weeks at the budget presentation. We'll work those into the budget letter, so the transmittal letter. So everyone's very aware. It's been a while since they've changed, but I do feel it's more right sizing employee cost shares. Now, employee cost shares won't change until January 1. We'll have open enrollment like normal in November, right? Because people will look at this new plan, they'll look at the new cost shares, and they'll make their changes. The great news is none of these recommendations changed the story so much that we're forced to have an open enrollment now. Not that we couldn't have one now, but that should be comforting to the employees to know that the Simply Blue plan is so similar that the disruption isn't great enough to have to offer an open enrollment. If it was great enough, we'd have to offer an open enrollment so that employees could make that decision because we changed the game. This is actually staying similar enough that we can hold our same open enrollment as normal later this year. One change we are making to payroll deductions right now, they're taken out of 24 pays instead of 26. So twice a year when we get the 3 pay month, employees enjoy a little bigger paycheck. we are recommending going back to the 26 pays consistent throughout. So with these increases, that brings in an additional roughly over $100,000 additional employee cost shares going to 26 pays instead of 24 with those increases. We'll continue having conversation for the in lieu opt-out benefit. However, we would like to, will be recommending tying that in lieu. Right now it's $100 a pay, $2,600 a year. And that seems to fall in line with industry standard, at least what we're hearing from Acrisure. But what we're hearing from employees is if we offered a little more, they might opt out. And it's good math for the county. But we don't want to have an arbitrary number. We'd like to tie that probably to the cost of single coverage somehow, right? It'd be a percentage of the cost of single coverage, if you will. So that, I believe in its entirety, is the recommendations from your insurance committee.
Commissioners, comments, Vice Chairman.
So with the adjustments for Plan A and participation in the cost for Plan A and Plan B, and the opt-out, there may or not be anyway that opts in, but that could reduce that 10.5 back down to 10 or less that we've budgeted for? Potentially have an impact on that?
Potentially, if people move plans, that will definitely have an impact.
Savings.
Yes, the math always works when additional people opt out, right? That math always works for the county. And we'll do the budget as if the same numbers of employees take the same plans and the same number of employees would opt out and maybe get an increased opt out if that's what we're recommending.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Mr. Sweeney.
So, just from my understanding, with the October 1st changeover and then the basically realignment of the employees on January 1st, employees' wage cost will not change until January 1st.
Correct. Yep, employee cost shares continue as is until December 31st, even with this change.
And then the county's cost? will
The county's
change
cost
October 1st.
change October 1st.
So-
And that's always how it's been, interestingly enough. It's always how it's been. It's just, you never saw it because the renewal was as is, or at least for the last handful of years, the renewal was as is. You never saw that change. Budget wise, we know that, and so we would take 3 months of the year at this price and 9 months of the year at this price. But you wouldn't,
But
that would be
would it
behind
be
the
to our
scenes.
advantage to realign it fiscally? Have our open enrollment aligned with our October 1st?
Absolutely. I think we'll have to, I think. Yeah.
Why?
Maybe.
is
Well,
there
we
re-
wouldn't have to, but all because I think as long as it's known at budget time that that's what's happening, I think you take the
account for
3
it.
months and the 9 months and we could move it.
But in this particular situation, I like the idea of waiting until January 1st because it allows all of our employees ample time to review the change. While it's not significant, I think they should have a chance to look at the costs and then be able to determine if they want to go buy out.
They would get that with open enrollment.
Correct, but
They
again,
would always be given the
right,
choice.
Enrollment, you actually have the materials in front of you.
Correct.
And that's when you're going to be making
Right.
your family decision.
Yes.
No one's going to be making a decision over the summer without
right,
that.
but this gives them more time to look at it and
Well-
make that determination if we wait until January 1st to increase the costs.
I'm not sure I see the
No.
point the way you do.
Okay.
Maybe this is the missing piece here is that, Lisa said the the change to Simply Blue is not a dramatic enough plan change, not a big enough disruption to force an open enrollment. If we changed cost shares on folks, October 1, that would be enough to force an open enrollment. And again, it's not like we can't do an open enrollment next month or the following, but what would that gain us? What?
So you good?
Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioners, anything else? Okay, Madam Administrator, moving forward with this, we obviously have an item later on our agenda, correct?
We do. This was actually just the discussion.
That's correct. All right, we're gonna. Item 6 then, which is a discussion regarding the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funds. I have some notes here. Obviously, with the American Rescue Plan funds, they must be spent or under contract as of 12/31/24. Is that correct? Under contract.
Spent by 12/31/26.
Spent by 31/26. Currently, we have what, roughly $13,571,000.
That is what we started with a couple of years ago.
Okay,
So 10 million of that was what the federal government said we can take in lost revenue.
Okay.
And we have. The top of your sheet shows that 10 million is spent as of 9/30/2024, as of the end of our fiscal this year. We had applied a lot of it to public safety payroll in fiscal 23. That's how we ended up with such a big fund balance that year. Just over 8.6 million. And then in the current year, just over $1 million being allocated to the HVAC replacement at the county building, which involved asbestos abatement. That's ongoing. Beyond the 10 million, the leftover 3.5 million, you can see down below that we had a balance of 2 million after last fiscal. This year, we've spent it as you directed on wage study. We continue to fund a senior assistant prosecuting attorney position with ARPA funds. This is the assistant prosecuting attorney position in question in the budget, because when funding goes away, the position goes away, right? And I know you've had communications about that. There's also spent this year trial court hearing room upgrades and the energy audit with JCI. What we have left that you have already kind of directed where it needs to go is 150,000 for Board of Commissioners AV upgrades that will happen as part of the county building rebuild. $250,000 for the Coldwater Lake Family Park Sewer Project. $100,000 for the Treasurer's Foreclosure Prevention Program, and the balance, just over $1 million towards the HVAC replacement at the county building, which we know the HVAC portion of that project is a little over 2 million. So this shows that as of now, everything's been discussed as far as where the board wants to allocate it. But this must be obligated by December 31st, 2024. Takes more than just a budget amendment by the board or intention on the board to spend it. We have to engage in some sort of contract to spend it, right? If we're talking about county building rebuild, that's not going to be too difficult by the end of the year. So that really leaves Coldwater Lake Family Park Sewer Project. I have been in conversations with Director Hansen. She understands that necessity to obligate and that we need some kind of outside agreement to be able to do that. Treasurer Pickens knows that we need a good, estimation of what might be used in regards to the foreclosure prevention. This year, anything not spent of these dollars will need to be returned to the federal government. So this discussion at finance that they wanted to bring forward was just really a reminder of this importance of obligating by the end of this year. Takes more than just a budget amendment. So we'll have more coming forward to make sure that that gets done before the end of the year.
Vice Chairman.
What's important is that anything that's iffy, we need to readjust these dollar amounts and put them into perhaps the HVAC replacement and administration building, just so that we can allocate it and not lose it.
Yeah.
We have so many needs. We certainly don't want to lose available grant dollars that we have.
Correct. And that's all this was at finance was just a discussion, a reminder. It's been a while since we talked about ARPA. People want to know how much ARPA do we have left or what's available. It's all been earmarked, but we need to do a little, we either need to spend it or more formally commit it.
Yeah, maybe Commissioner Hutchinson give a little bit on this, but I know the Coldwater Lake project or the sewer project through there is probably not going to be, the estimates aren't going to be out. Is that correct? I don't think so either. So do we need to have some sort of a legal contract to dedicate those funds? Probably have to go through legal.
Buying pipe, even if you,
Confirm that.
yeah.
I mean, it's definitely going to be a lot more. I doubt if that would be the cost, but yeah, we might want to get going on that so that doesn't slip through. So.
Yep, even if you're contracting for materials that you don't spend the money until December 31st, 2020, that's okay. But yeah, you've got to be,
Something.
got it. You've got to be formally obligated to spend it.
Good. Commissioners, any other conversation? Madam Administrator? Anything else? All right, so we'll move that on. And item number 7 is a discussion regarding our fiscal year 2025 budget draft number 2. Madam Administrator, you want to take this one?
This is supposed to be draft number 3, but nothing changed. So we didn't want y'all looking for the changes when nothing changed. So this is the same that we presented to finance July 9th. And it is a balanced recommended budget. We settled at 24.5 for revenues and expenditures. As Chair Jalzinski tonight mentioned, it doesn't include cost of living allowance. It doesn't include any of the wage study implementation, assistant prosecuting attorney position that is currently ARPA funded or currently HATS contract, but it does certainly have a little over 328,000 of contingency available to do that. Some of the highlights is that Q1 funding of road deputies that the board has directed. And we've built back in some of the board dues. We've built back in some capital improvement dollars from the 250 we had to just to 75. We've got capital improvements for courthouse roof in there. Still the MRF appropriation, and Director Borton is working diligently on his budget. We've got our portion of the Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility project. And one of the changes we had made prior to help balance was that bond payment for the county building rebuild. We have budgeted at $750,000. We will not make a principal and interest payment in the first year. It'll just be interest only. So we've brought that down to $250,000 and used that one-time free up of $500,000 because we're going to need it in the subsequent year to make that bond payment for the first quarter road patrol deputy funding. That was a nice match. Reinstated a couple of valuable internships. And we've gone over those changes certainly in finance. Does anybody have any questions about the budget? One thing I do want to mention we talked about at finance was there was a question about chief deputy salaries. We talked, some discussion about that. The way it currently is, what we've implemented from the last wage study was it's a percentage of the elected official, being that they're there to take over any and all of the duties when needed. Percentage of the elected makes sense. So continuing that into the new year is what is built into the budget. I didn't receive any direction different from finance. Any questions?
Pointed right at me before I even.
No, I saw you raising it. I saw you start to raise your hand earlier, so.
What's the salary that we would have to cover for the prosecuting attorney position that's covered by ARPA if we took it from the contingency?
Roughly 120,000 salary and benefits. And that's presuming that, we always presume in those family health coverage, because we don't know if, and that makes obviously tens of thousands of difference. So 120,000 is the number we're talking.
Okay, so we would have, that would bring us down to 208 contingency.
It would. It would. Another option we've just visited is the ARPA funding. You know, the position has been funded with ARPA to this end. It can continue to be funded by ARPA for 2 more years if the board would so choose. It wouldn't have to come from your contingency. Those monies then wouldn't be available to other projects on ARPA, but that FY24 of ARPA, you've planned to spend this much, but you can change that going forward. You can say, we're not going to do the Board of Commissioners AV, we'll pull that back. So just to point out, we just happened to discuss another possibility.
I think that the Board of Commissioners rooms is currently a concrete warehouse. It's going to need some sort of AV.
But that will be built in that AV will be in the overall rebuild layout and spec, right?
Put it in the bottom.
Well, if we want to roll that back into the total building costs as a way to solidify the prosecuting attorneys, that's fine, except for the fact that we're just buying ourselves 1 year.
Oh, possibly 2.
Possibly 2, correct.
Right.
That is correct.
I mean, that's
fine.
not a
long-term solution.
not a great short term.
Especially for people that want to make a decision to take the position. Right?
Right.
Commissioners, other comments?
So we've looked at the negative side, the expense side of the ledger, but there may be a bright side to the revenue side, and that is the work is ongoing right now on major solar farm development in Isabella Township that would generate new personal property tax revenues that might bring in some additional dollars available. However, those dollars decrease over time because it's based on personal property, but it would provide some breathing room that might pick up prosecuting attorney and go on. So there is that one bright side to our budget.
Yes, there is.
Commissioners, any other comments about our fiscal year 25 budget?
I would just end the conversation saying that it would be my preference that we planned on it in our budget for a prosecuting attorney and not short-term it. It's, a necessary coverage that we have to provide the county. It just doesn't seem wise for us to try to push it down the road and pay for it with temporary funds when it's a long-term expense.
The legacy cost.
We're not going to have fewer cases in the future.
Not gonna happen. No. Agreed.
The only thing I can say on the flip side of that, for every dollar we spend out of that contingency, it's fewer dollars that we have for hats,
I
for
realize
other
that.
other needs too. So
I realize that.
Well, we'll have to find the money,
Yeah.
basically.
We got to make decisions.
Yep, hard decisions. Yep.
Some will win.
Commissioners, anything else? Vice Chairman, that concludes the work of the Finance and Administration Committee for this work session.
Commissioner Embry, you've done a remarkable job on a very heavy loaded committee agenda, so
Thank you,
we
sir.
appreciate that.
My pleasure.
We'll move on now to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Vice Chair. First item is consider approving the Laura L. House Farmland Agreement application dated May 5th, 2024, and instruct the Isabella County Clerk to forward the approved application to the MDA Farmland Open Space Program. So this is pretty standard. We see many of these through the year. Just approval for the land be set aside for use only for farm, and thus they get a tax break. This only needs to see approval by us to move on to the state, the form to the state to be filed. Any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
All right, we'll move this on to the regular session.
Okay, next up is consider approving the budget request for the fiscal year 25 child care funds in the amount of $2,208,455.33 and authorize board chairperson to sign the form DHS-2091. So this is a request. We might not get that much. We have online, I believe, our trial court administrator, Carrie Curtis. It is a $400,000 increase from what we asked. That's due to some changes, which our administrator will discuss.
Good evening. So this is our annual budget for the Child Care Fund. As Commissioner Engler indicated, it is an increase of about $400,000, but not $400,000 to you all. It is a request for a $400,000 more eligible reimbursements. So the good news there is that the laws have changed effective October 1st. So while the court's going to have a lot more responsibilities, as far as juveniles go, we're also eligible for better reimbursements. So our juvenile probation officers are now all eligible to be 75% reimbursed by the Child Care Fund. And a greater portion of our referees' salaries and fringes are also going to be eligible. So that's where the real difference between our budget request from last year and this year comes to the Child Care Fund. So good news there.
Any questions? Yes.
We made this comment before, probably every year, but we do appreciate the trial court and everything they do to manage the child care fund. Even though we get a considerable amount from the state reimbursement, we also have to budget locally for that. And it's a very volatile cost to our budget because you never know, one child in a special care condition can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So do appreciate the effort of the trial court to maintain a very stable budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yeah, I know Administrator Curtis gets really tired of me asking about that fund. It does give me nightmares that sometimes because it's so unpredictable, but the courts and you have done a great job in keeping those costs respectable. So, okay, any more questions? It's a big number, so we'll move that forward to tonight's business lesson. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that completes the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Did a great job. Thank you. Moving on to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Okay, we have two items tonight. First item, consider approving the secure alarm proposal agreement dated July 23rd, 2024 in the amount of $19,645.72 between Secure Alarm and Isabel County Commission on Aging, and authorize the board chair to sign the same pending legal review. Ben Crawford here.
Hello there. So I mentioned before that I would be coming forward to you with this request. When we were first planning the pavilion, I honestly didn't think about how we were gonna be, if we'd be able to schedule the locking of the doors until one of our managers asked me, how are we gonna do that? And that's a really great question. And so I reached out to Michelle. She worked with Secure Alarm. We currently use Secure Alarm here in our facility. So that allows us to schedule all of the locks of our facility because so many community groups utilize our building after hours and on the weekends. And so we're able to schedule those locks just for safety of the building. They also monitor and control our security camera system. And so with this new beautiful facility we have out here that we're hoping will be ready soon, we would love to be able to extend that security out there. So with Secure Alarm, they're able to actually tie in the system out to the pavilion where the two restrooms, so that we would be able to schedule the locking of the bathrooms and not keep them open all night long, which we would rather not do for safety. But we would be able to extend or schedule them to be open a little bit later in the evenings for folks that might be out there enjoying and playing pickleball or shuffleboard, and then have them lock and then unlock in the morning for those who are there and want to use it as well. They would also be installing a security camera out there for us so that we can monitor the pavilion. And I think that just helps. I think it helps people feel secure and also helps us secure that beautiful facility we have out there. So I definitely recommend this. I think it'll be a great way to tie into the system that we currently use, and it will be a great resource for us.
Nice facility. We just got to wrap it up and this will be the final thing. And
Yes, we're getting there. We are getting there.
you have any questions? Okay. That being said, we'll move that forward to tonight. And our next item, consider approving the restructuring of Gold Key volunteer program to include the elimination of non-union pay grade 5 officer clerk position and authorizing the creation of Gold Key program supervisor at a non-union pay grade 9 effective immediately. Yeah.
So as the older adult population continues to grow, and it's growing and growing and growing, so does the need. And so with that, our volunteer program has grown tremendously. So we're now are over 300 active volunteers, which is incredible. And we would not be able to do what we do without those volunteers. But right now that program, we only have 2 staff that work in that program. We have a manager, the program manager, and then we have an office clerk. Well, as the program has grown over the last several years, our office clerk position has morphed into a role that is much more than what the job description truly is. And so as we were evaluating our job descriptions, and we actually saw it on paper, it was definitely very eye-opening. And we realized that this is not an office clerk position. This is not what we need. We need a program supervisor, which is exactly, we have the same types of positions in our foster grandparent senior companion program. This position now, when it was first created, the office clerk position answered the phones for the program and scheduled transportation. Now that the program has grown so much, this position actually is overseeing the entire transportation program, which is our home delivered meal drivers. It is the transportation drivers who are taking individuals to their medical appointments and to helping them with groceries. So they're scheduling all of that. They're training those volunteers. They're overseeing those volunteers, providing oversight, managing that entire program. Also helping the program manager with recruiting and training of other volunteers and doing the scheduling for everything. So truly the position, we don't need a clerk position in there to be able to satisfy the needs of what that program is seeing right now. We actually need the program manager and we need a program supervisor. So I'm just asking to restructure that team to meet the needs of the changing population and the changing need that we have here. Where I would like to eliminate the office clerk position and then implement a program supervisor position that would then be working with that program manager. So the difference here, an annual difference, would be $13,424.90.
Hey, do we have any questions here?
Is this a new hire situation?
We would be eliminating the position. We have somebody that is in the clerk position that I would love to just to promote and put into that office or the program supervisor position. So we would not be looking to hire outside.
Do we have any policies on? Do we need to do a job hiring search?
So as far as policy, there would be we always ask for the job description of the new position that would be created. That is something that is attached to the staff report. So that detail is there. This is something policy-wise, this is a restructure. So this is something we can look to, was done in the MRF. I'm thinking of recent times a restructure was approved. So Director Borton came forward, said the MRF, with everything going on, with the workload, with the type of work now that we're engaged in, the MRF at the time had a operations manager position that was eliminated and an operations supervisor was created. There was not a change in personnel. There was a change in position title, right? And that's how that request was brought forward. There was the new job description and the justification from the director of why the restructure was needed. We've done it in 911 a few years ago in the budget. That's how we have the two
With the
operations
MRF, was that Jake Borton was taking on duties that included the new vision for the MRF and
It wasn't for his position, but
But-
with him taking those on, more things at the,
supervisor. The
yes,
manager
his
was
suite.
taking on some of his roles.
correct,
Right.
to justify a supervisor, which we consider
Right, because he
higher
was
in the
taking on
hierarchy.
new roles.
Correct, and she would be, that position would be taking on more of some of the director's duties, while the director focused on the materials management
Right,
planning
right.
and the new committees and the upgrades and the funding.
Thanks. I just wanted to check on policy.
I was hoping I didn't have to be the devil's advocate. But I know we've had other positions, other departments come before us, with the same type of things. And we tabled it or denied it because we're currently waiting for the wage study. And this position one probably should go through that wage study to be determined if it's at the proper level. And here's a situation where if we approve it, it's not going to impact our general fund because Commission on Aging has its own budget. And I understand the argument and I certainly buy into it. These things do change. But what do we then say to the other departments that have come to us just recently saying, okay, we're going to do this one. It's going to be a slap in the face. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't hold off on all of these until the wage study is completed, comes before us. We have a policy in place. I know it's difficult. It's a difficult situation. I'm very much in support of the Commission on Aging, but I'm just wondering how's this going to impact us, our reputation.
My recommendation to table this and put it into that line of what we're trying to do.
I think I'm concerned about setting a precedent where we, as you mentioned, you have certain enterprise funds such as Commission on Aging that do have a fund balance where they can make these kind of adjustments. We have general fund departments that don't have that money to be able to make that, to reorganize. So then again, are we going to say no to them because we don't have the money in general fund? I'm going to say yes to Commission on Aging. Is that going to set a precedent? And how does that play with the employees that work for us? Well, department.
I do think that there's a distinction here as opposed to some of those other situations this last year where they came forward to change it, and we're looking at a person doing a different role than they're hired for. That it's, so we're looking at a restructure, not a change of someone's
Classification.
wages for the job title, right? So,
That's exactly right. Reclassification is when someone comes forward and says, this position's making this, but it should be making this. A restructure is to say, our operation has this and we need this. So there is no, to my knowledge, general fund funded restructure that's come before you. Reclassifications, yes. We had a general fund restructure in community development and it's, well, community development. Yeah, it was general fund funded. We went from a admin assistant to office coordinator. I believe, I'm really stretching my memory if those were vacant though, or they were not vacant at the time. No, no. So similar. Thank you. I thought there were two because they both pay for that. So part general fund, part outside fund.
So I guess my next question is, what is the pay grade 9? Is it going to be based on the current pay grade, or is it going to be on the Amy Cell wage?
We haven't
study?
implemented anything. It
This is
can't
current.
be on Amy Cell. We haven't implemented it.
So-
It's got to be on our current.
Okay, so then how do we know that that's actually a pay grade 9?
Can I mention that? So when we were looking at our job descriptions, as the program manager for Gold Key went through and adjusted this job description based on what the position was actually doing, we were actually looking through all of our job descriptions, and this job description mimics the program supervisor that we have in our foster grandparent senior companion program. Much of the same duties and the same minimum requirements are with this position that those have right now. So we're right within our own department. So we have 2 program supervisors already at Commission on Aging.
And that's a good way to go about it. Similarly, I know when Director Borton was looking at an operations supervisor position, we looked at the parks, it'd be, with the parks maintenance supervisor position versus park manager, looked at those duties and aligned it that way with the grade. There's some logic there. There's some good justification.
So it's a very fine line, whether it's a pay grade increase or if it's a reclassification, because any of the departments, if we approve this, any of the departments come before us and say, okay, we're going to restructure because of the responsibilities of the position and not ask for a pay increase. So I don't know, I'm still troubled by it.
justify a restructure, right? It's on paper, it's written down, job duties. You can't make it up.
But you can do that. I know you can do that, but the classification study or the wage studies, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not only the wages, but we're looking at position descriptions and.
Well, the wage study isn't just the market study, it's that structure as well, right? That hierarchy within offices and departments. Yes, throughout the organization, not just wages.
Well, we're not making a decision now, other than if we want to move it forward, but I've heard maybe tabling it. I don't know what the consensus is of the commissioners tonight.
I'm in favor of moving it forward.
I'm in favor of tabling it.
I'm in favor of tabling it.
I'm in favor of tabling it.
I'll go table it till we have a little more.
So I mean, we've had our input. It can automatically move forward and it can be brought up and defeated at the regular meeting, or we can just go ahead and by consensus and say it's not moving forward. And Jen, it's not that we don't support the position. It's just, we're in a very difficult position. you know, if we, different budget situation, I would certainly vote for that.
Totally agree. It's just the times we're in.
Timing.
With that, did you want to make that declaration as chair?
Well, I would just say that we'll table this for tonight and look at it and maybe come back with this in the future. With that being said, we will not put it through to tonight's meeting, and that completes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Hutchinson. Very good job. We don't have anything under intergovernmental affairs. Under administrative controller, we have one item, and that's consider approving the municipal employees retirement system employee delegate. So, and an alternate delegate and an officer delegate. We'll be doing that at tonight's meeting. I don't think we need to have any discussion on it. It's something that we do every year.
If I may, I apologize. I do want to have just a couple minutes of discussion because in the past, at least as long as I've been with the county, 7 years, Treasurer Pickens has always been the officer delegate, and I think I was the alternate. This item came about through our budget meetings because we brought up to the commissioners, we've taken dues and subscriptions out of the zero-based budget, but traditionally the board always pays for the expenses for an employee delegate and an officer delegate to attend the MERS conference. And those commissioners being Chairman Hope, Vice Chairman Jalzinski, Commissioner Embry, I believe the three of you were in that conversation. If not, please correct me. Felt that it was more important to send someone from administration to the conference that as an officer delegate. No offense to Treasurer Pickens, outgoing treasurer, no offense to incoming treasurer. Decided in those budget meetings, someone from admin should go. Certainly treasurer has their own funds that they oversee and can attend the conference should they want to. The employee delegates are voted on by the employees. I just wanted to mention that.
Sure.
With that, we'll move this on to tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
We don't have any unfinished business. Under new business, we have consider accepting the fiscal year 2025 Insurance Committee recommendations and approve the change to Simply Blue PPO self-insurance for prescriptions with Aerolex and maintain HRA levels and change to MetLife for dental, vision, life, and disability coverages and authorize the county administrator controller to sign all the necessary documents to implement the recommendations. So we've kind of had discussion on that. You know, we're short on time because we're going to lose our clerk at 8:30 and not sure how we're going to function after that. So unless there's other discussion, we'll move this on because we've already had some good background information.
Sounds good. Move it on.
Okay, hearing none. We do have a closed session, but what I'm going to do is keep that. We're going to do general public comments.
You knew I was coming, right?
We are always disappointed, Karen, when you're not here to provide us some input.
So I just wanted to a little bit address the wage classification. I have in my office a position that started back in May. We proved that with comparables that the position was underpaid. Position shouldn't have been a 6, should have been a 7 all along from way back when. That was denied in the budget process. We were told that we were going to wait for the wage classification. Then in November 7th, several people did get wage increases. I think that there were reasons why some of these people got wage increases. We have had other, where there were not reclassifications, restructuring, like what she's talking about, that I think is, as we move forward, we have to make a distinction. And I think while I would love to have my person be paid where I think that she should be, obviously, when you have someone like Jennifer's talking about, an individual who has been doing a job she was not paid to do for probably years, and that's been ongoing. And then we have these people continue to wait. And I don't think that really benefits the county to make that person continue to wait because we want to wait for something. It's hard enough when it's a reclassification and we're waiting, but when it's someone who's clearly been doing something, an entirely different job, a job that he's working not alongside of, but someone else in the facility is doing a job with the same duties, that's getting paid a much higher wage than she is, and she has faithfully been doing that same job for a long time without that same compensation. And I think that those types of disparities cause employee morale issues, and we have problems here with employee morale issues. That's why years ago I started the fund committee, because we had problems with morale issues. I know you guys are in a tough position. I know that, you're working on it. You're trying to do your best. You're trying to make sure that you do things to help everyone. But I think that we have to remember that while situations, it's just like in my office, a situation can look quite similar, and yet basically there's something that's very different about those two situations that can help you make a different decision. I would like to reiterate that back on November 7th of last year, when some positions were given raises, it was addressed that special consideration, once the wage classification was completed, and if those positions were found to be underpaid, that special consideration would be given to those positions from back. We had to put that in back in May of 2023, that those positions that didn't make it through, that were waiting from the 2024 budget, would be given special consideration. And I would hope that that would continue, that you would honor that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Mark Perry. I'm a resident of Sherman Township out in the Wademan area, District Precinct 2. I'm here to really ask a question of the board members. Ask them what the board has done to help Clerk Lux to scrub the voter registration rolls. In particular, we've all heard on the news that out of the millions of illegal migrants that are crossing the southern border, that the Biden administration is signing these illegal migrants up to vote. Now, and the other issue that I wanted to ask about is, what is the plan on November 5th for putting cameras on the mail drop boxes? So anybody would like to answer either of those questions?
This is, do you want to? I was gonna tell him this is public comment. We don't engage.
I was just gonna say, in public comment, we don't provide any direct feedback because we may not even have it, but I'm gonna ask our clerk to get your information and you can post that information to those questions and hopefully get the answers you're looking for.
Well, that's not, I'm here. I wanted to, because I've tried calling my my precinct commissioner, didn't get a return call. And so I'm here to ask the board, do you not want to provide an answer to that? Because it should be pretty common knowledge amongst the board members if there's something that's being done. It's a pretty big issue and has been a big issue for several years now.
So we don't engage in a question and answer during public comment. We just don't.
What? No, I'm
And-
curious. Why is that? Where does the public get a chance to question this
But we
board?
do take and listen, and the information will be taken and you'll be contacted.
Okay, well, that's not my question. My question is, why don't you accept questions? Is there some reason why you don't want to take questions? I mean, it could be public comments and question period.
So we have 3 minutes time and we're at that point. So thank you very much.
I get the point.
Anybody else, public comment?
My name is Edward Bayless and I live at 1020 Essex Drive out in Lake Isabella. And I want to address your consideration of the wording for the July 12th, 2024. Resolution 2024-13. Well, you just had a discussion that you don't want to take questions and answers. I'm curious why, out of millage proposals for public safety, that you're going to have funds taken out of that for Downtown Development Authority. You're going to have funds taken out for brownfield remediation. That's not what we're voting for. We're voting for public safety. We're not voting for Downtown Development Authority.
If you stay after the meeting, I can tell you exactly why.
Okay. Well, it'd be nice to let everybody know. And is
It's not a secret.
Is 1.45 mils going to be enough? Considering that you have to take some of those funds and give it to Downtown Development Authority.
There's a reason for it. You'll get the answer. Anybody else wants to state and get the answer to, that's fine after the meeting. Thank you for your comment.
I really wish the rest of the board was here, because I know on every board, there are leaders and there are followers. And the people on the board that are the followers need to get some intestinal fortitude and stand up and vote what the people told them that they wanted.
Any other person wishing to come up to make a public comment? We'll close the public comment section. Commissioners, do you have any announcements to make? Commissioner Engler.
Yeah, I'm going to read this because I just got it a couple hours ago, but involved several different groups, and we applied with the Conservation District for a 319 non-point source solution of 3.5 million. There were 7 counties or people that applied for that. We were one of them. So there's going to be $335,000, and I'll read what it is on here. It's to address the high levels of bacteria from human sources in the Middle Chippewa River watershed with an educational campaign for homeowners centered on the importance of septic systems inspections and maintenance. The project will also implement a septic inspection program on tribal lands with cost shares for repairs or replacement. Also received another grant from Eagle. We just, like I said, we just got that a couple hours ago. And this is for watershed organizations, which the Conservation District applied for. And this one's for 34,550, and it's for conservation and educational for our watershed management plan. So anyways, that's it.
Any other commissioners' announcements? With that, the chair will entertain a motion to move into closed session to consider under Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act, the collective bargaining agreement strategy.
Support.
Been moved,
Oh, so moved. Sorry.
Support.
been moved and supported. All in favor? Oh, roll call vote, Madam Clerk. Yes.
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 Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
We turn off our microphones now. these people leave and come back and I'm thinking, I wish I could do it.
You can,